This Lord that I defined is the Lord of Abraham. And anyone who submits to this Lord of Abraham, and despite what associations they have with it or they attach to him, however they're viewing him in a certain perspective, that is changing their theology. Yes, you are right. You and David, if you are submitting to the Lord of the skies and the earth, created this world, you by definition is a Muslim. You conceded.
You're saying that your definition of Muslims as people who submit to God, that Avery and I would be Muslims, Sunnis, Shias, Sufis, these would all be Muslims and that they are submitting to God, but you would believe they're misguided in certain ways, but they would all be Muslims, right?
They're Muslims, but they're not believers.
Do you say that we are Muslims but not believers?
You're a Muslim, you're not believers. You have concepts of shirk. God never refers to you as mushrikun. God refers to you as people who committing disbelief by the association. But he never called you a mushrik. But he's saying, hey, when you're saying God is a one of a third, you're committing disbelief. When you're saying that Jesus is the Son of God, you're committing disbelief. But he never said you are a mushrik.
I think it's interesting. You're a Muslim, I'm a Muslim, we're all Muslims. It's a Muslim party here. I still want to examine this. So you said, for those who say that Jesus is the Son of God, that we're disbelievers for saying that, but we're still Muslims. So my question is, according to the verses that you quoted, is Jesus, he's a Muslim, but he's a disbeliever? I'm talking about the verses you quoted to prove to us in our Bible that Jesus is a Muslim. So I'm not talking about what you think is corrupted. I'm talking the parts that you quoted as if they're not corrupted.
Etymologically, the word mushrik comes from the Arabic root shrk, which means to associate or to include another in partnership. From this same root comes the term shirk, which refers to the sin of associating partners with Allah, a sin considered the gravest offense in Islam. A mushrik, therefore, is someone believed to assign partners to God, whether in essence power or worship. In Islamic theology, believing that Jesus is the Son of God or that the Holy Spirit is a divine person is categorized as shirk. Yet for us Christians, to deny Christ as God is to reject the fullest and most complete revelation of God himself. So when Muslims claim that Christians are Muslims but mushrik, this is not a compliment. It is a semantic conquest, an attempt to subjugate Christian faith under the theological framework of Islam. But the Christian faith is not founded on abstract surrender. It stands on historical and incarnational revelation. Christianity has never been, and will never be, part of Islam's definition. We are not a corrupted version of Muslim. We belong to Christ.
So then you're talking to Shaiba. I quoted only two verses, 530 and 22:21.
Exactly. And you said out of your mouth, I heard you, it's recorded in your verses, you read that Jesus submits his will to the Father as he hears, he judges, and he submits his will to the Father. So Jesus in John chapter 5 says he's the Son of God. He submits to his Father. I'm going to ask again. So according to the verses you quoted, is Jesus a Muslim but a disbeliever?
530, Jesus has said he submitted his will. People saying that he's the begotten Son of God, that is something that Jesus did not say.
So he's not saying what you believe or what Islam teaches. Avery is asking, since you quoted John chapter 5, verse 30, and that's where Jesus says that everything that the Father does, he does, and that you have to honor a son the same way you honor the Father. Avery is asking, is Jesus in this passage, even if you believe it's corrupt, but is he in this passage a Muslim but not a believer? Because he's saying that he's the son and you have to honor him the same way.
But Dave, Dave, the John chapter 5 verse 30 doesn't say what you just said. That's not the verse we used. So what point are you making from?
Didn't Muhammad say he brought up John 5:30?
Yeah, no, I brought John 5:30.
No, both of you did. Both
of you did.
But it doesn't say anything about.
It doesn't say what you are saying. It doesn't say what you, David, is saying.
Yeah, we're talking about the rest of the passage. We know you believe that Jesus said other things. We're saying, according to this passage, would the person who is saying these things, saying that he does whatever the Father does, someone who says that he's the one who raises the dead at the resurrection, someone who says that that you have to honor him the same way you honor the Father, where he says that he is the final judge of all mankind, would a person who said these things in this passage be a Muslim but not a believer?
2 points. One, that I'll bring you back to an earlier debate where we had, where I told you Jesus can't.
It's very simple. What David asked you and what I asked you. It's super simple.
He's not a Muslim.
Thank you.
Whoa,
Beautiful.
Jesus in John chapter 5 is not a Muslim, but you quote John chapter 5 to show that
wait,
Jesus is a Muslim.
David,
Understand the context.
David.
Don't wait, one moment. Don't twist the issues here.
Don't twist it,
Yeah,
David.
we're not the one twisting.
Yeah. No.
Don't you twist
wait,
it.
No, don't interrupt.
I'll try not to.
You are playing the semantics here. Look, John chapter 5, verse 30. The passage we quoted, if you have to base it on exactly the context we quoted, it says, I can of myself do nothing. As I hear, I judge. So it means he is doing the will of the Father. This is what we quoted as a reference.
When Muslims quote John 5:30 to argue that Jesus was a Muslim because he said, I can do nothing on my own. I do not seek my own will, but the will of him who sent me. They are actually engaging in a highly selective and manipulative approach to the text. They isolate one phrase from Jesus' statement, which, when read in the full context of the Gospel of John, affirms not a Muslim identity, but his divine nature and unique relationship with God. Yes, Jesus did say that he submits to the will of the one who sent him, but does that alone mean he should be identified as a Muslim simply because of his obedience to God? That is a dishonest play on words. Submission to God is not a concept exclusive to Islam. The prophets of the Old Testament also lived in obedience to God, and yet none of them are called Muslim. The most fundamental distinction lies in this. Jesus called God his Father, and this is utterly incompatible with Islam. Nowhere in the Quran is Allah called Father. In fact, the very notion is explicitly rejected in Surah Al-Ikhlas. So when Jesus addresses God as my Father and teaches his disciples to pray, Our Father in heaven, he is revealing a relationship entirely foreign to Islamic theology. The relationship between the Father and the Son is at the very heart of Jesus' revelation, not a dynamic of master and slave, but one of eternal love and intimacy between divine persons. This is where the Muslim contradiction is exposed. They quote parts of the Bible that appear to align with Islam in order to claim Jesus as a Muslim. But the moment they encounter verses that contradict the Quran, such as Jesus being the Son of God or calling God his Father, they immediately declare that the Bible has been corrupted. This is a double standard, using the Bible when it's convenient and discarding it when it's not. Yet truth cannot stand on a foundation of inconsistency. If John 5:30 is considered authentic, then so must the other verses in John's Gospel that declare Jesus to be the Word who was with God and was God, John 1:1, and that consistently refer to God as Father. One cannot accept a single verse and reject the rest just because it challenges one's theology. So the claim that Jesus was a Muslim simply because he submitted to the Father's will is a false conclusion built on partial quotation and willful neglect of context. Jesus was not a Muslim. He is the Son who reveals the Father, and he is the Word made flesh. And he never preached Islamic theology. On the contrary, he declared God as Father and affirmed himself as one with the Father. It is not Jesus who needs to be redefined to fit Islam. It is Islam that must confront why it rejects the God Jesus came to reveal.
Troy, is Allah a father? Yes or no?
He's not a father.
Thank you. So if someone is claiming that Allah is their father, then they're not a Muslim, correct?
You have to understand the perspective on how he's using the word father.
It doesn't matter.
Father, is it biological? Wait. Clarify the point first.
Okay,
biological father,
is very
spiritual father.
No, please. Let me just ask it. Is Allah the Father in any sense?
No.
Figuratively, allegorically, any sense?
No, he's not.
No.
He's not.
Thank you.
Okay,
So it
I
doesn't
have a
matter.
question.
Both of you just said that Allah is not a father in any sense. So it doesn't matter in what sense Jesus claims to be the Son, whether it's begotten, whether it's allegorical. In any sense, if you claim to be the Son of Allah, you're not a Muslim. You guys just cooked yourselves, man.
Shuaib, no, we didn't. This is how retarded you sound.
We are good chefs.
Shuaib,
Yeah, don't cook ourselves.
brother. Shuaib is the person that's mentioned in John in its entirety. Was that Jesus speaking?
No, he's not.
Hey, ooh, we win! Wow, we got
Well,
it.
of course, they know that. They know that. They are trying
That's
to
how
twist semantics.
stupid you sound,
No,
Avery.
no.
The person that is completely in the John that you're quoting, that is not Jesus completely speaking. The person that is saying that he's the Son of a God or that he is equal with the Father, that is nothing from Jesus. And we're here to tell you that if you have submitted to the Lord of the world, the skies and the earth, you are saying complete blasphemy to put someone as weak as a human, as an equal to who created you and who can destroy you, who saved Jesus from the cross. You understand that?
In response to our discussion of John 5:30, Schwabe pointed out, he went to John 20, where Jesus says, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. So notice, even the verse itself, you guys both agreed would not be Islamic, and yet you're quoting it to defend your point that Jesus was a Muslim. But it's even crazier if you keep reading.
No.
No. Yes, I'll read whatever I want. In verse 22, same passage, a couple verses later, it says Jesus breathed on them and said, receive the Holy Spirit. Oh my goodness, that ties in with the last debate. But then just a few verses after that, a week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came in and stood among them and said, peace be with you. Then he said to Thomas, put your finger here, see my hands, reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting, Schwabe and Muhammad, and believe. Thomas said to him, my Lord and my God. Then Jesus said to him, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. Our point is that you keep quoting passages to show that Jesus is a Muslim. And if you simply keep reading, there's no way he's a Muslim. So you're saying, but the one verse that we agree with, that's the real Jesus. But the rest of it, which completely contradicts Islam, no, that's all just made
Jesus.
up. That's not Jesus.
Right,
Notice passage after passage after passage you quote, and literally all you have to do is read before it or after it, and it shows that Jesus can't possibly be Muslim, according to you.
Notice how, my man, and Muhammad, this is for you too, it's for both of you guys. Notice how we never quoted a single passage or talked about a single passage that you didn't quote yourself. We're only using the context of the passage that you use. That's it. If you're trying to say that we're taking your words out of context, bro.
Dave said I quoted. He said,
like you might as well just not say anything. How about this? Don't quote the Bible anymore. Just give up on the Bible. Just admit that according to the Bible, Jesus is not a Muslim, and try to use something else to prove it. Because you can't. According to the Bible and the passages you guys go to, you've already admitted Allah's not a father. A Muslim can't call Allah a father and be a Muslim. Jesus says that he's the Son of God, and so therefore he can't be a Muslim.
John 5:30 is not an isolated statement about ordinary obedience. These words come from Jesus in the midst of a profound discourse about the divine authority entrusted to him. In the same chapter, Jesus declares that the Father has given him the power to raise the dead, to judge the world, and that whoever does not honor the Son as they honor the Father has failed to honor God himself. Therefore, when Jesus says he submits to the will of the one who sent him, he is not merely identifying as a prophet or a servant in the Islamic sense. Rather, he is expressing the eternal relationship between the Son and the Father within the Trinity, a relationship that reflects perfect unity of will and essence. The biblical concept of doing the will of God, particularly between God and his Word, is not a passive submission as Islam defines it, a submission of a servant to a distant and transcendent master. In contrast, the book of Isaiah presents doing God's will as the active work of God's own Word, sent forth from him, accomplishing his purpose, and returning to him in perfect success. This is not the relationship of slave and lord, but of eternal unity between the Word and the one who sends it, sharing the same essence and will. Isaiah 55:11 says, "So shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me void, but it shall accomplish what I please, and it shall prosper in the thing for which I sent it." This verse is not speaking of a prophet or a mere created being. It speaks of the Word, Logos in the language of John, not merely carrying God's will, but being the very expression of that will itself. So when Jesus says in John 5:30 that he does not seek his own will, but the will of him who sent him, this is not a declaration of Islamic identity. It is a profound expression of divine obedience within the unity of the Trinity. For the will of the Son is never separate from the will of the Father, just as the word in Isaiah never fails to accomplish its mission. What we are seeing here is not submission in the Islamic sense, where a lowly creature yields to an unknowable will. What we are witnessing is the eternal harmony between the Word and the one who sends the Word. This kind of relationship is only possible within the revelation of the Trinity. not within the rigid monotheism of the Quran. Therefore, when Jesus submits to the will of the Father, he is not acting as an ordinary man seeking divine guidance. He is acting as the eternal Word, perfectly fulfilling the will of God, just as foretold in Isaiah centuries before. His submission is not proof that he was a Muslim. On the contrary, it is the fulfillment of divine prophecy, proving who he truly is, God made flesh.